Inflation has led to tepid consumer spending, and high interest rates are having a big impact on Americans and their ability to afford the American dream. Many hopeful homeowners are putting their plans to buy a home on hold. And joining us to talk about housing trends and financing options is the Vice President of Discover Home Loans, Rob Cook. Welcome, Rob.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Now let's talk about the findings from Discover's annual survey of American homeowners. The numbers tell the story, don't they?
They sure do. And one of the things we were using with the survey is we surveyed about 1,500 Americans to see how today's economy is impacting their decision-making process, or whether it's to buy a new home, renovate their existing home, and how they're managing their finances. And one of the key findings we found is in terms of interest rates having a huge impact on people's decisions whether they want to buy a new home.
And how are high interest rates impacting the housing market as well as potential buyers' plans?
84% of those said the interest rates are sort of really having a big impact on their decision-making process. And about half of those actually have looked at the interest rates today and said, I'm out of the market. And they pulled out of the home buying market entirely. About a third of the people, are still in the market, but are a lot less committed than they were before because of that high interest rate. And we found about 2/3 of those people want rates to come down to 5% or lower. The expectation is that at some point, hopefully later this year, the Fed will feel confident about where inflation is and start lowering rates, but it's going to be a gradual process.
Now, inflation and the cost of living has affected us all. How can homeowners manage that double whammy of high interest and inflation?
Yeah, no, it is a challenge for sure. So, on the inflationary fund, it's going to impact in terms of how much you spend at the store every day. And we're seeing, about half of our survey respondents are pulling back in terms of their discretionary spending. One thing people can do is look at their debt obligations. In a lot of cases, a lot of those debts are variable rates. So when rates are high like they are today, your monthly payment goes up and the amount of interest you're paying goes up. So there's an opportunity for people to do what's called a debt consolidation loan. They take a new loan, use the proceeds from that loan to pay off their existing debt, hopefully at a lower interest rate and lower their monthly payments. And if you're a homeowner, what we're seeing a lot of activity for is a home equity loan, where people are able to use the equity they have in their home without impacting their primary mortgage, and also get a rate which is lower than other financing options because it is backed by the equity they have in their home.
And during times of economic uncertainty, is there a particular home loan that can work best?
Yeah, so I think the home equity loan is a great option for people. It also has an additional benefit that some providers such as Discover Home Loans are able to get that loan without any origination fees or cash to a closing, and it may also have tax benefits if you're using it for, say, a home renovation alike.
And the survey also found that homeowners would rather renovate than move. Can you tell us more about these findings and share your top tips for budgeting and financing when it comes to your home remodel?
Absolutely. So yeah, we gave people a choice. Like you could stay in your home, and renovate, or you can move. And which option would you prefer? And about 55% said, actually, I'd like to stay in my home, but I'd like to renovate it and make it even better. Right. And we saw activity, especially for younger consumers. They want to, use that renovation to make their house more their own and fit their lifestyle. Make sure you account for additional costs when you're doing a renovation. About half the people in our survey who did our own renovation were surprised in an unwelcome way in terms of how much their project costs. So it's smart to add a little extra buffer as you think about sort of planning for your home renovation. Be really cognizant in terms of how it's going to impact your overall financial situation. In today's environment, in most cases, you don't want to touch your primary mortgage. So like a home equity financing makes a lot of sense. And you also want to be consider in terms of what kind of fees are associated with any kind of financing that you do.
And where can we go for more information?
You can go to discoverhomeloans.com. We have a whole host of articles and tools that allow people to sort of navigate the home financing process, as well as calculators so people actually can see how much money they could potentially save with a debt consolidation loan.
Rob, we thank you so much for sharing these important findings and advice for homeowners.
Well, thanks for having me. It's been great.
And we thank you for joining us on San Diego Living. We'll see you next time.